Hi, it's Thursday night, and I am about to fold my laundry. It's a black sock. I had a roommate in college who he woke up every morning incredibly happy, like happy in a way that made me feel angry. I am a morning person now, it turns out, later in life, but I was not a morning person when I was in college. And he had a favorite song that he used to sing at the top of his lungs. And sometimes I thought the song was great and sang it at the top of my lungs too. But other times I just thought this is absolutely the worst thing, in exactly the same way that his waking up happy was the absolute worst thing. He had this other terrible trait where he became obsessed with particular things. Like he came up with a song. There was this song by Amy Grant. Do you remember Amy Grant? She was a crossover artist from the Christian contemporary music movement into secular music. And by saying the words secular music, I automatically out myself as a someone who grew up in the world of Christian evangelicalism. Anyway, she had this song that came out at some point, and I think it was the song called "I Will Remember You." But part of me thinks that that can't actually be the song for reasons related to my roommate that I've been thinking about recently. This is not what I was planning on talking about. I gotta start doing this laundry. I'm gonna put the socks over to the side. A few of you who watched this last week know that I kept putting the socks over to the side and I was gonna fold them last. And I don't know if you noticed this while the episode was unrolling, but one of the things that happened was I put this pillow over top of the socks on accident, and I didn't find them until a couple days later. Fortunately, it was just Christmas time, and so I have a lot of socks right now. Anyway, so he loved this song so much that he intentionally he used a double cassette player, you know those boom boxes. Some of you are like, what? And you could like push this one button and it would copy from one. It's how people started to make mixtapes, I think. I suppose probably there were some people who started to make mixtapes in like by using all like wires in two different ones, and then probably this new technology of making mixtapes feels like I'm holding a costume in front of me for a fitting right now. The way I was holding that orange. What's an orange towel? Yesterday I wore this sweater to the first day of work, and one of my good workmate friends said to me, "I feel like you are always wearing orange." And no one's ever said that to me before, but I didn't feel bad about it because my great grandfather was Irish. He came over on the boat, but when he came over on the boat, he was fiercely still affiliated with the Orangemen. I am politically not aligned with my great grandfather in this regard. I have more sympathies toward uh, the movement of Irish independence, um, but he's my great grandfather, and we actually thought it was so cool that when everybody else who was Irish decided to wear green on St. Patrick's Day, we would always like say, "We wear orange. You can't pinch me." Did that happen to you in school? Did people pinch someone if they weren't wearing green? On it strikes me as on St. Patrick's Day. It strikes me as like almost like the the night of Passover where the death angel came uh, through the city and killed all the firstborns. Um, it's almost like because the Pharaoh wouldn't let the people go and he kept on changing his mind. It's almost like that story. That story is like really a terrible story. But that story is almost like a wonderful story because it's this moment where the disempowered, disenfranchised, marginalized people suddenly get their come they they get their moment where right is done by them. And that was kind of maybe like how it felt to be non-Irish and to forget that it was St. Patrick's Day and not wear green, and people were just like allowed to pinch you. I don't think anyone's allowed to pinch anyone else anymore. I love that people are getting consent for everything. I'm a big advocate for that and a fan of that. But I still always it always tickles me a little bit when people say, like on the internet, I see them being like, "Can I touch your hair?" And they're in a barber shop, and I'm like, "Whoa, how else is it going to work?" I like it makes it sound like I'm like making fun of it. I'm not. It's just jarring that that particular question. Can I touch your hair? I don't know. Like in modern St. Patrick's Day, is it like I noticed that you are wearing green. Can I pinch you? Do you mind if I pinch you? Where would you like me to pinch you today? Consent based. Um, Irish revenge. Oh, you know what? I promised that sometime I would like show you my actual method for folding shirts, and this is a shirt, and this is my method. The little IKEA tray. I usually use them to put my so I lay this down, and I use the IKEA tray as if I had a job in the Gap. Something I would occasionally dream of when I was in high school. Um, I didn't really go to the mall very much. We had to drive to a city that was 30 or 40 minutes away to shop at a Gap. So it was like a big deal. It was almost a spiritual pilgrimage, and that would just turn out so nice. That way, I didn't really show you the process at all, but this is actually not a how to do anything um, series, except maybe how to listen. I have a niece and a sister who were having this conversation about the fact that um, they were they were noting with um, some degree of awe that I really love to listen to their dreams. And it was partly based on they were having a hard time like listening to the other person's dreams because they were just going on, which a lot of people do, including me. Oh, did I just lose my train of thought? Um, so no, I said to them that when they told me about this conversation they had, oh, the better part of the conversation was that they're like, maybe he doesn't actually care about the dreams. He's just really good at making you think that he's listening and think that he likes it. And then one of them was like, no, um, like he wouldn't. That's like he wouldn't just be like lying to us. And the other one was like, I don't know. He was secretly gay and lying to us for so many years. I love that story. Secretly gay. So this series is really about um, talking to people, you, and and making connections to people. And in this case specifically, it's about sharing dreams. So not, like I said, not just strangers. I haven't started talking about a dream yet, and 8 minutes has gone by. This could go on for years. I'll try to be really quick about the dreams. But I really do think that dreams are not just for the dreamer. I think that they are best when shared. I grew up in a very religious context where, people would announce that they had gotten a word from the Lord or that the Lord had told them such and such. Kind of a prophetic, a contemporary prophetic tradition. I have a history professor friend who always would talk about the idea that the greatest contribution that evangelicalism ever made to history was the personal testimony, which is a really normal thing that happened in evangelicalism, but it really empowered people who otherwise had no access. It was almost like a an amplification of the Protestant Reformation, but suddenly like women were allowed to testify, which it was a radical, like kind of moment or motif in public life. I think that's a really good argument. People have made a lot of other arguments along those lines, but the point is, like, Jesus never spoke to me. I would hear people tell me in church that Jesus was going to speak to me, and he just never did. I really wanted that very much, um, and much later in my life, when I was not as connected to that religious tradition in a direct way, I'm always be connected to it. Um, I realized that maybe the closest that I feel to divine communication is dreams because they are so mysterious, and like you can work hard to try to understand them, but you might not quite get it right. Oh, I just realized that I made some audio noise earlier. Did you hear that? Let's hope it doesn't happen again. Okay, I'm gonna move this over here. Oh, that will be a bummer if that ruins everything. Okay, my dream. This is a dream that I had 1 year ago on January 2nd of 2024. And in the dream, I drove my car into a house that I used to own. In fact, I owned this house for 10 years, which is the longest that I've ever owned a house. It's also the longest that I ever lived in a house. My whole life, I was moving from house to house, from state to state. Um, and, and when I turned 30, I got my first full time job. And I was able to buy this house along with my partner, and we loved it. It was built in 1921, and it was a two-story house, and it had a basement, and there were all kinds of things I especially loved, but I think we really loved the house. I, and this is the thing, I dream about that house more than any other house that I have lived in. I am really super conscious about spaces when I wake up and think about dreams, partly because most of the spaces that I encounter are not spaces I remember. So when I encounter spaces that I do remember, that does add like a layer of kind of meaning or feeling to the experience of the dream. In this particular dream, though, as I pulled up to the house, I could see that other people were living there, and I knew that we still owned it. So I knew that they must be renters or have some other kind of temporary status in terms of their living in the house. And I pulled in, and I didn't just pull into the driveway. I actually drove the car into the house, and that wasn't strange in the dream. And I was, driving it in slowly, trying to do it the right way. But then I got to this place where I couldn't get around the corner because there was an island in the kitchen, and so I had to actually get out of the car, fold up the car. It's interesting, but I'm folding. Happened again, didn't it? It was terrible. Oh no. I think I'm going to leave the audio in though, because one of the things I really like is how unscripted this is, and I could never, tell the same stories again. So I'm really sorry about those audio glitches. I'm going to fix that somehow in the future. So I folded the car up until it was about the size of a suitcase, and then I could drag it along the floor. And by this time now, the inside of the house no longer looked like the house that I actually lived in. Instead, it looked like a version of this house that I have encountered in the dreams over and over again. And one of the most distinctive factors is that there are window glass transoms at the top. They're about this tall, maybe, of every room, so that like the whole house is very full of light. It seems like something that people would do during like the modern era of building houses. But this house was not built then, you know. It was built in 1921. And actually, I guess it is kind of the right era, but this wasn't that kind of house. It was a two-story, and it was a conventional Ohio house. I'm sure there's a name for the house, but I don't actually know what it is. I'll work on that. Get back to you. So I noticed that that was where I was in the house. And then, after I had moved the suitcase to where I needed to, I went out into the side yard. I saw the people who were living there. And it was a family with 5 sons, and the mother were there. And they were all playing a game that was like baseball or cricket, some kind of like game, kind of like both of those, but not exactly either of them. And it was very clear that these kids had been like each other's playmates as brothers, like all the time. And do you know families like that where like there's such a thick family culture that like when you arrive, you either feel othered or delighted to be included. I didn't have a strong feeling in either direction about that, but I just had this keen sense that these people were like really, really connected to each other. Um, and I grew up in a family of brothers, and then I got a sister. And then everybody got married, and so I got more brothers and sisters. Well, one more brother, and then multiple sisters. Uh, so, so I guess that's a connection to what the dream might mean. Part of the meaning for me, but I don't know if it's part of the meaning for you. So after the game was over, we all went inside, and the mother was making sandwiches for all of the kids. And they were all eating their sandwiches. The conversation was lively, but the whole time the mother was talking to me. When she was talking to me, she kept on talking about a bunch of different like artists and plays and novels, all of which made me like admire the fact that she was so cultured. And and on some level, the things she was talking about sounded like reference points that I had been aware of before, but only very vaguely. But I sort of like didn't ask her to elaborate on them or tell me about them. I just kind of like nodded because she was just talking. Oh, and by the way, around this point in the dream, she's definitely being played by that actress. Who's that actress? Um, Carrie Mulligan. You know who Carrie Mulligan is? That's who's playing this role. Now, it's not Carrie Mulligan in my dream. It's just the mother of these kids. And I also figured out during this time that one of the reasons they're temporary is because they're a group of family singers. Um, and they travel around the country singing, probably in churches, given my history. And the oldest son went over to the piano. It wasn't a piano, it was just a keyboard that was behind the couch and was sort of fiddling on the piano, kind of like trying to figure out a song. He was like maybe writing. And I loved the particular chaos of this room. And I walked around and was like kind of listening. And I actually started playing the piano too. I just felt overwhelmed with a feeling of happiness. And that's my dream. It took a while to get through it, but what are some of the things that are like worth kind of noting? I'm not going to answer that question. I mentioned this last week, but if you have interpretations or dreams that are like this, dreams that like interpretations that are related to me, okay, interpretations that are related to like to you or to the world, or like how is this like a myth? That is one other thing that's going to happen on this um, Thursday night laundry folding story. I have all those socks still. I'm not going to get them done. But I guess if I don't have to do laundry before next Thursday, I can just fold socks. It will be like an exclusively sock folding situation. If I fold it this way, will you be able to see it any better? No. It's a little risky. You can kind of see it, you know, a little bit. So fold them both over, both the arms, and then I kind of grab the tails, fold them back this way. This is show you myself this, before I fold it my last time. I'll go ahead and show you. This is the logo for the Nightlight Theater, which is one of my favorite little independent theaters. I helped start it. I kickstarted it way back in the day. Thanks for being here. I did mention that this particular series is is in the public domain. You're able to make your own episode, and feel free to tell me in the comments so that I can come and watch it, because I'd love to have dialogue. It's one of the things that I love about YouTube.